Okay, I'm attempting to do an audio recording the while my son plays in the cul-de-sac. One of my subjects I wanted to talk about was a personal computing subject concerning the problematic situation when devices come to end of life. Oh, and I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about how if you're someone who has used the same computer or phone, what be it, for a long time, and you haven't thought through what you're going to do when that device dies and how you're going to move over to a new device. There's a lot of clever things that have been developed in the last, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years that have made this process a lot easier. But there's still the issue of being totally unprepared, which is the common case for folks who aren't very tech minded and who have appreciated and used their device much like an appliance, using a laptop or desktop computer just for certain functions they need and enjoying the use of it, going about their day until end of life is upon them. And this can be problematic in the case where somebody's very conservative and hasn't bought fully into an ecosystem that they're a part of. And I'll try to explain what I'm talking about with that here in a minute. For example, if you are participating in the Apple ecosystem and you've got a range of Apple devices all that are connected, but you haven't really thought through or tried to spend the money to access all the functions of the iCloud and the backup systems that are available, especially when you get the larger storage amounts that make it easier to switch between devices. You could have a harder time switching devices if you haven't stored and backed everything up in there. Now, that's a super simple thing, and they do kind of nag you about it. Hey, use iCloud, back up your stuff easily, makes it easy when you switch. And that's if you're in that ecosystem and you pay for those things, then it makes it easy to get the new replacement device, do a type of restore from the cloud account. No big deal. Um, Similarly, in the Microsoft world, ever since the promotion, I guess, invention and promotion of OneDrive, there's a similar function there for Windows systems. So if you do go all in with your vendor operating system, there are options now to make this process a lot easier. So that's one major bonus of the way things have developed. A lot of times there's a subscription to use more than a few gigabytes of data, however. And if you're somebody who likes to take photos, videos, things like that, you're probably actually in a multi-cloud situation depending on what you've chosen. For example, if you have an iPhone and you're iClouding all your photos to the iCloud, but you use a Windows PC for work and you're OneDriving things there, now you've got two different ecosystems, two different clouds. Yeah, whenever you switch, you can easily use those to keep going, but you've also expanded the costs. You got multiple subscriptions to these uh, services that are attached to your accounts. Uh, to add to that, if you're someone like me who uses multiple platforms, let's say you use multiple platforms. What if you have a Windows machine that you use? You also run a Linux machine. You've got a Mac OS laptop. You've got these multiple ecosystems. Well, it can be very costly if you're going to upkeep your participation in them the way they're built for their insular methods. So the good thing about these is you can say they're good at what they do. For example, the Google Drive and Google Cloud, especially if you have a Google One device and you set it up properly, it's a seamless transition when you need to replace that device. They've done really well with that. But here's the thing: is those are all their own ecosystems, and so what if you're going through a transition? Let's say you've been using the Apple ecosystem for a long time. You've enjoyed it. You're you're having a great time using their products, you have no issue with the iCloud or anything like that. But then you're going to go and transition to another platform. I guess let's just use Windows as the example because that's probably the most common switch over because of a work change or a decision change on what you want to run. Well, a consideration that gets skipped sometimes is like, okay, there's two major things you're going to want to bring over in order to not have kind of a herky jerky roadblock while you're doing this. That's going to be those cloud files, those photos, those things that you have built into your invested ecosystem that you've been a part of, that you've been upkeeping your subscriptions and you've been storing your data in their system. So the next thing is that your passwords, your credentials for things, it's very comfortable and easy to use the security tools that are provided through the Microsoft, Google, and Apple ecosystems. These also work really well. They've done a good job of making these work well and are easy to use for end users. And again, if you're going to stay in that ecosystem, you can just move forward, carry your subscription forward, get the new device. You got your passwords, your backups, you have all your stuff together right there. So if you're Googling and you're using all Google devices, maybe you have like a Chromebook and an Android phone, these types of things. You're just going to have an easy time moving forward. Same thing with the other ecosystem. But here's the thing: when you jump from one to the other, you're going to want a gracious way to pull those passwords, those cloud files, all that data over. So, in my estimation, and what I've done because I'm a multi-platform user, now this really only applies to people who are going to be multi-platform. If you're going to stay invested in the tech ecosystem you're in and you're happy, this may not even be something worth listening to at this point. But what can be really useful is a third-party method for both of those things. A third-party cloud provider. The most popular is probably Dropbox because it is multi-platform and it's well established. But the fees can be a bit high, but it works really well for that purpose. So Dropbox would be like probably one of the more popular options that people have talked about that I've used in the past. A third-party cloud storage app that's not tied directly to the ecosystem is a major benefit because when you switch to the other platform, you can just use this third-party system. You've got access to everything. It's going to work just fine. Whereas the bought-in ecosystem cloud, now you've got to extract, move this stuff over to the other ecosystem. And once you get over there, what about going back the other direction? Well, it's going to be a lot easier if you just start right now using a third-party cloud backup system instead of using the ecosystem built-in method. You're probably going to be paying about the same amount, but it's going to solve your problem when you change devices, when you change over, and there's a decision made to use a different platform or operating system. I mean, for example, imagine you become more privacy minded or you gain an interest in open source. You decide that you want to become familiar with Linux, so you start transitioning to Linux, but all of your passwords and cloud data is in an iCloud or a Google Drive or one of these other ecosystem built drives. Now the thing is, you can extract all those files manually from all of these. It's not like they're going to keep them and hold them in such a way that you can't get to them, which is good. But to use them for all their syncing functions, all of these types of bells and whistles that are useful, having a third party one means that you can go ahead and be doing this the entire time. And in a lot of cases, pare down the multiple subscription problem, because if you've got a OneDrive account, you got a Google Drive account, you've got an iCloud account. This is what happened to me in the past. Even started using a bunch of Amazon online services for stuff. So, having your cloud storage all over the place in multiple ecosystems can become a mess. So, that's one suggestion I think, is that if you're willing to do it, I particularly like iStrive because it's so simple and because I invested in like a lifetime. They have a lifetime plan thing where you can pay a few $100s at a time, and then there's no ongoing subscription from that point. So I actually stepped into using them just as a form of cost savings. And then of course it took, I think it was about a year and a half for that to have actually saved me money versus my previous cloud subscription, but it has. And now that service is very simplistic. It does not have bells and whistles. It's like one of the most basic cloud storage options you can choose, but it does work. Um, there's other ones that do have bells and whistles, like pCloud has a similar option, but these are just examples of third-party storage providers that make it to where you can easily transition if needed between the different platforms or operating systems, um, and avoid this issue I'm talking about. Now, the second part of it being the passwords, storing all your passwords in either your browser or your operating system, it's not inherently a terrible idea. I know a lot of people knock the idea anyway, but it's not the worst idea. It's better than doing nothing. But there can be issues that can arise when you go through this transition simply because of the same fact. So at some point, you're going to have to extract all those. You're going to want to be able to export them and then import them into the new password manager you're going to use. Now, here's the thing: a lot of people that I speak to aren't even using a password manager, and it's 2023. So, if you're not even using a password manager, you're trying to remember all your passwords, or you're using similar passwords on all your accounts. Um, you could run into trouble with security issues, data breach stuff. These types of things could be a problem. So, you're going to have a problem not only when you change devices because you're still stuck in the case of trying to remember everything, but any of the passwords that you saved in these disparate places, like in your browser, you let your browser say, "Oh, you want to save the password?" Yeah. Well, you've done that. Um, you probably have some of your passwords saved there, and some of your passwords are saved in your operating system keychain, is what Apple calls it. Um, so the thing is that when you go to the totally other system, you're sitting there going, "Well, what now? Fiddlesticks, what do I do?" Well, in that case, you could use a third-party password manager. And my suggestion of that has been Bitwarden for a long time, not only because of how it works, but because it's the free version of it is full featured. You also have your ability to pay them $10 a year to gain extra features. The reason I support that and pay the $10 a year, I mean that is per year, so that's over the course of a whole year, less than $1 a month actually, I think. So anyway, point just being that what that allows it to do is not just be your third party multi platform password manager, but it also is allowed to handle and store your one time password codes. So your two factor authentication that works in a similar way to like Google Authy or one of these other two factor applications that keeps track of your codes. Well, this makes it better because in the case of security minded people, if you're using a separate password manager and a separate authenticator, well, you may know and already be aware of how painful it can be to change devices when your authenticator is being used by an app that is no longer available on the platform you're moving to. So now what are you going to do? You've got your passwords and your two factor stuck in an ecosystem you're trying to not have to be dependent on any longer. Well, if you switch to Bitwarden, and you're not going to have that problem because your passwords and your two factor codes will be in the same place that is accessible on virtually any device or through the web if those devices don't have an application, which in most cases they do, being that this thing can be run as a browser extension as well as downloaded to most platforms as an application. So these are solutions that make it easier to transition if your device comes to end of life and you have either seen the end of the device coming or it happened suddenly. This will make it easier because when you go to your new device or your new setup, all you need to do is first thing log into your Bitwarden, log into your iStrive, your pCloud, your Dropbox, whatever it is. You've got all your cloud storage and your passwords right there. and you were able to switch to any other device or platform. You're more ready in this case for if a drive fails or a computer blows up or any negative thing happens. Um, you know, you can do easy backups of these things in between themselves. I have a ritual where I build up storage of videos on Google Drive, and then in the winter, I take all this stuff down from the Google Drive and I put it onto my third party cloud. So I do use multiple clouds if needed, but it's kind of because that availability of storage is built into other things I already bought from Google. So, but if it was an extra subscription, I would probably just not even worry about it and just pipe everything to the third party cloud anyway. Point just being that when you transition or when a device dies, you don't want to have this hiccup of a question of where's all your data or how are you going to access it if you're changing platforms. Now, again, a lot of people will never change platforms. They will be, hardcore Apple till they die. They're not going to have this issue because it doesn't matter. You're not going to need to pull your passwords and your uh, cloud storage to another platform. But if you are either a multi-platform user or if you anticipate changing platforms or ecosystems, you do yourself a favor now to go ahead and find a simple third-party cloud storage solution and a simple third-party password manager. And once you do that, you're going to be happy as you extract and import your stuff into those third-party tools. Do secure them with good password, second, two-factor authentication, all that. But then now you're just in a better position. You can lose any phone and be back where you're at, even if you have to change from Apple to Android or vice versa. No problem. You can go from Android to Linux. You can go from a Chromebook to a Mac. You can access all your stuff. So so low cost ways to make your life more manageable when these things happen. Now, if you're lucky, you're going to see the end of your device coming down the road, and you're going to be able to make decisions about what to do next. Hopefully, hopefully you're able to make a cost-effective decision and easily transition your access to data accounts, all that, in a way that's not a hiccup for you. But I do find in the realm of personal computing, these are subjects that come up a lot, simply because they're not being thought about until either the end of the device's life or the need to change platforms. And all of a sudden, changing platforms is upon me. What am I doing again? Oh, I've got a bunch of stuff stored on my hard drive, and I've got a bunch of stuff in this OneDrive account. But I'm going to something that's not Windows and it doesn't support a OneDrive. So what do I do? Well, if you go ahead and do all that stuff now while everything's working, you don't have to worry about it. You've already done it. You've already done the hard work. So that's just a simple set of thoughts on those ideas. Thanks for hearing me out. Hopefully, it was useful in some manner to somebody. Um, this does solve a lot of problems and solve technical overhead for you as well, just because built into your Bitwarden or your preferred cross platform password manager that you choose, the ability to generate complex passwords and then remember them so that you can just have better overall security in general by not reusing the same and similar passwords through so many websites. And if you've been using a separate password manager and second factor app and you've tried to transition to a different platform and you've experienced how irritatingly bad that can be, especially if that second factor device has some particular things about it and it's destroyed or lost, you could be forced to have to reset two factor through a lot of accounts, and some accounts it can be time consuming to reset all those. Some are really hard. You got to get human intervention a lot to look at account details to verify who you are to reset these things, or you have to have had your recovery codes. So these are just ways to solve this issue. Um, Two factor any account you can, complex passwords, all that's just a lot simpler with something like Bitwarden in your arsenal. So, wiping a hard drive, resetting a machine, you know, formatting a computer and reinstalling Windows. Yeah, but you got your cloud back and all your passwords in 15 minutes. You're up and running. You log into some of your browser syncing accounts, and boom, like you're done. If you're a gamer, all you need to do now is log into Steam again and download your stuff. Whatever the case may be. So if you're gonna stay in your same ecosystem, easy sailing, keep paying your subscription, and when you get a new device, just pop over, log back in, boom, 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 Bob's your uncle, you're good to go. I cannot remember why people said that, but a guy I know used to say Bob's your uncle all the time, and I don't know when I started saying it, but I'm still not quite sure what's going on with that. If somebody knows, explain to me this colloquial phrase that I used. Anyways, and so your cloud backups, just remember another note I wanted to mention before I totally just drop off of here for now was your cloud backups. I mean, think about it. Is that going to be enough if you have some kind of like catastrophic situation in your internet service? What if you're changing internet providers during a period of time when you do those files? So just remember, whenever if something's really important, it should be backed up in more than one place. You could download all these things from the cloud provider over a course of time, even if you have a somewhat limited connection, and keep yourself a copy on a drive somewhere as well as on your cloud, so that what if your transition involves failure of connection, relocation, waiting for new internet service, these types of things? Well, you can still have access through your drive. So if you got it in two places, you're in a much better spot, and that's like a general rule I think everybody should consider. And if you're the type of person who's going to stay in the same ecosystem, if you're going to use Windows for from here for years, use the OneDrive for your general cloud. Okay, that's good, no problem. But then maybe consider something like Backblaze or something like that as a second, hey, a holistic approach to backing up all your stuff. If you work for a corporation or something, um, I don't know, maybe you can have a security type backup. Well, companies usually do their own backups, but of important stuff. But I guess my point just being, if you've got like important stuff there, maybe you run your own business and you've got important files there. Maybe consider something like Backblaze as a way to just have straight raw copies of your entire Windows machine moving forward. That's a good solution as well. But the point just being, it should be in at least two places. If it's only in one place, it's a matter of time before it's lost. Could be a great amount of time, but it's still just a matter of time. So that should be remembered as well. And that reminds me, I actually need to back up and update my hard copy of all my photos, which is going to take quite a while. But it is something that should be done from time to time. Uh, Anyways, these are just considerations and thoughts in personal computing, like rambling thoughts. So just consider, where are you saving your passwords? If you've been lazy and you've been using similar passwords everywhere, stop doing that today. Um, Anyways, that was fun to talk about.